So I'm going to tell you about some of the work done at UCT and introduce the topic of cervical cancer, human papillomavirus, and HIV. So cervical cancer is the second most common cancer among women worldwide, and there are an estimated 529,000 new cases and 274,000 deaths in 2008. And most of these cases actually occur in the developing world because of the lack of screening programs in the developing world. So if you look at the cancers in South Africa, the most important cancer is breast cancer, with an incident rate of 34.3, and behind it is cervical cancer at 22.8. And in women, the third most important cancer is cancer of the esophagus. And these are our graphs from a WHO source that was published this year. And if you look at the incidence rates in our neighboring countries, and I'm not sure how accurate these figures are, but Swaziland and Lesotho have even higher incidence of cervical cancer than South Africa. And if you compare this to the rest of the world, it's quite clear that the developing countries have a much higher burden of disease than the developed countries. And this is, in these figures, these are the incidence rates given on the bottom axis here. And quite clearly, you look at the African figures, they're the highest in the world, going right down to some of the West Asian figures. If you look at the 5 continents, the burden of cervical disease is highest in Africa. Sorry, I'm battling with this device. So in South Africa, the annual number of cases is about 5,700, and the annual number of deaths is about 3,000 women dying each year. And this is projected. I'm now going to move on to telling you a little bit about the virus that causes this cancer. So, human papillomavirus. So this virus is a host-specific virus in that human papillomaviruses don't infect any other host, and there are a whole lot of other animal papillomaviruses, like canine papillomaviruses only infect dogs, and horse papillomaviruses only infect horses. Human papillomaviruses are only found in the epithelium. So unlike some viruses where you get a viremia and you can find the virus circulating throughout the body, this virus infects epithelial cells, so the outside surface. And there are many different types of human papillomavirus, probably hundreds of different types. And you tell the difference between the different types by looking at the nucleic acid or the DNA of this virus. And that's how you determine whether it's a different type or not. And the viruses are site-specific. And there are 2 main groups, those that infect mucosal surfaces and those that infect cutaneous surfaces. So the mucosal surfaces are the surfaces, say, like the genital mucosa or in the oral cavity, and cutaneous being like the skin on your hands or on your feet. Latent infections or infections that are not causing pathology are common. So many women who have normal pap smears are infected with papillomavirus. And there are no serological diagnostic tests. So when one diagnoses most viral infections, one can look at an antibody test. So you can take a specimen of blood and look for antibodies. To diagnose papillomavirus, you need to test for DNA. And there are some other tests that help the pathologist determine what type of lesion there are. But if you want to test for this virus, you've got to look for the nucleic acid. So there are 3 major groups of papillomavirus. So cutaneous warts, epidermodysplasia verruciformis, which is a rare skin disease and not really important in this talk. And the most important group are the mucosal types. And the cutaneous warts are those warts that people see in children. They're very common, not common to see them looking like this, but commonly affect most people in the population. You can also have plantar warts, so it's the warts on the bottom of people's feet, and this is caused by the same family of papillomaviruses that cause cervical cancer, but not by the same types of virus. So it's different types of papillomavirus. So you're not going to get genital warts from the virus that causes plantar warts. Sorry, let's just go. So the mucosal papillomavirus group infect the anogenital tract, oral cavity, larynx, esophagus, conjunctiva, and these are the same types of virus that can affect all these surfaces, with specific types, different types associated with benign or associated with malignant lesions. So the low-risk lesions or the benign lesions, such as genital warts, also cause laryngeal papillomaviruses in rare cases, and it's the same viruses, usually type 6 or 11, causing these warts. Now, it was known for a long time that cancer of the cervix behaved like a sexually transmitted disease. It was known that nuns hardly ever got cancer of the cervix, whereas commercial sex workers commonly got cancer of the cervix, that the wives of traveling salesmen were more likely to get cancer of the cervix than the wives of men who stayed at home. So there were all these things, and people kept looking for that organism or that virus that caused this disease. And it was only when molecular biology made it possible to look for nucleic acid that it became possible to find the virus that caused this disease. Because in actual fact, if you go and look at the tumor, you cannot see this virus at all. All that is left of this virus is the nucleic acid and some of the proteins that this virus makes. So it's only in the early lesions that you can actually see productive infection. So when the microscopists went and looked for virus, they didn't see anything. And it was only when the molecular biologists had the tools to look for the nucleic acid from this virus that they could show that almost all carcinomas of the cervix had detectable papillomavirus. And it was only in 1996 that it was accepted that carcinoma of the cervix is causally related to human papillomavirus. So when you think about how long it took to find this out and how quickly a vaccine was developed, this is really a good news story, that once it was found that and accepted that these viruses caused this disease, that a vaccine was developed so quickly. And we'll hear about the vaccines in the next talk. The other very important concept for women to understand is that this is a very common sexually transmitted virus. Not all women with HPV will get cancer of the cervix. Only a very few of them will get it. And there are numerous cofactors that have to be in place for a woman to get a persistent HPV infection and to develop cancer of the cervix. Most women clear papillomavirus.